So it looked like it might be a conspiracy against the Indiana Fever free agency. Guys, for this one here,
something strange is happening in the WNBA and nobody is talking about it. The Indiana Fever, one of the most exciting, fastest growing franchises, can't seem to land major free agents. But is it just bad luck? Or is there something deeper going on our teams and players actively avoiding Indiana to keep them from becoming a powerhouse? Could the league itself be quietly working against the Fever rise? This isn't just another off-season struggle. This might be something much bigger. Stick around because we're about to break down the silent conspiracy against the Indiana Fever and why it could be the biggest story of the WNBA offseason. And hey, before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a single update. I'm here to tell you things are looking that way today, being January 31st, tomorrow being February 1st, the official day of signing, and pretty much let everybody know where everybody's going. And we have 2 free agents left still on the board, that is Danana Bona and obviously Satu. So all right, let's talk about something that nobody seems to want to address. What in the world is going on with the Indiana Fever? Because if you've been paying attention to this WNBA offseason, it's becoming increasingly obvious that something isn't adding up. It's how the new CBA agreement is done, because they don't want to give away money, because just like I've been telling you guys, everybody's just signing these deals right now. They're 1-year rentals every year. Teams go into free agency looking to make moves, improve their roster, and position themselves for a deep playoff run. But when it comes to Indiana, there's been nothing but frustration, disappointment, and silence. And here's the thing, it's not just bad luck, it's not just front office missteps. It's starting to look like there's a deliberate effort to keep Indiana from getting better. They are not long-term investments, and if you're in the business side of things, you want a long-term investment. No, you don't want something that's going to be like a year and then is over with. Well, I'm here to tell you that's what the future looking like for a lot of these players that has decided to join these other teams. Like, Alyssa Thompson going to Phoenix. You have other superstar players like Joel Lloyd going to Las Vegas, Kelsey Plum going to La. Think about it. This is a team that just drafted one of the most hyped rookies in WNBA history, Caitlin Clark. They've got Aaliyah Boston, young superstar in the making. They have a growing fan base, massive media attention, and a chance to completely change the league. So why can't they seem to land any big free agents? Why do players get linked to Fever only to end up signing somewhere else? Why does it feel like every time Indiana is close to making a major move, something mysterious happens to derail it? Look, we've seen teams rebuild before. We've seen organizations go from bottom feeders to championship contenders with the right moves, and under normal circumstances, a team like Indiana should be an attractive destination for free agents. But this year, not a single major addition has come through the door, and when you start looking at the way free agency is played out, it raises a lot of questions. Take Brianna Jones, for example. There was buzz that she might land in Indiana, that the Fever were pushing hard to bring her in and bolster their front court alongside Aaliyah Boston. It made sense. Jones is a proven talent, physical presence in the paint, and exactly the kind of player that could help Indiana take the next step. But instead of signing with the Fever, Jones ends up in Atlanta. Okay, no big deal. Maybe it just wasn't the right fit. Then you've got Natasha Cloud, another player who could have fit perfectly in Indiana's system, bringing defense leadership and championship experience. And yet she signs with Connecticut instead. Fine, maybe the Fever weren't aggressive enough in their pursuit. Maybe they had other priorities. But then there's Satu Sabali. This was a player Indiana fans were practically begging for. The rumors were flying. Sabali to Indiana made sense. It could be a franchise-altering piece, someone who could instantly elevate the team and make them a legitimate threat in the WNBA. And yet, as of now, all signs are pointing to her heading to New York. Instead, at what point do we stop believing this is all just bad luck? At what point do we start asking if teams around the league actively trying to keep Indiana from getting stronger? Because here's the reality, the WNBA thrives on balance. The league doesn't want one team to dominate too much. They want parity, they want competitive games, they want every franchise to have a shot at being relevant. And let's be honest, if Indiana were to land someone like Sabali, they would instantly become a problem for the rest of the league. They already have the most hyped rookie in years, and once Clark gets comfortable in the pros, she's going to attract more talent. Naturally, players are going to want to play alongside her. They're going to want to be part of the energy, the excitement, the national attention that comes with being on this team. But if you're another franchise in the WNBA, especially one that's used to being in control, that's not something you want. You don't want the balance of power shifting too quickly. You don't want a team that's been struggling for years to suddenly leapfrog into contention overnight. And what's the best way to stop that from happening? Make sure they can't get the players they need now. Obviously, this isn't some cartoonish villain plot where GMs from other teams are sitting in a dark room making sure Indiana fails. But in the business of sports, it's not uncommon for teams to work the system in their favor. Agents steer players in certain directions. Teams leverage rumors to inflate contract offers, and media plays a role in shaping public perception of teams and players. And when you start looking at How many players have been linked to Indiana only to sign elsewhere? It's hard not to wonder if something big is at play. It's not just about missing out on big-name stars, it's about the message that's sent to other free agents, because when you see top-tier talent choosing other teams over Indiana, it creates doubt. Other free agents start wondering, why aren't players going there? Do they know something I don't? Is there a reason to avoid the fever? And just like that, a franchise that should be on the rise starts feeling like a place that nobody wants to go. That's how a silent conspiracy works. It's not an obvious coordinated attack. It's a collection of small decisions, whispers, and steering players away behind the scenes, until suddenly a team like Indiana finds itself stuck in the mud while other franchises continue to stack talent. And if you think this is just paranoia, just take a look at how the media talks about Indiana. There's this narrative being pushed that the Fever aren't a serious destination, that they aren't a championship-level team yet, that they still have too much to prove before star players should want to go there. But that's ridiculous. Look at their roster, look at their potential, look at their future. The Fever should be a top destination for free agents. They should be landing talent left and right. But instead, we're watching them get pushed out of every major free agency conversation, while teams like New York, Las Vegas, and Phoenix scoop up the best players available. It's frustrating, it's suspicious, and it should have Indiana fans absolutely furious, because here's the truth: the WNBA is changing. Caitlin Clark is going to bring a new wave of fans into the league. She's going to change the way the WNBA is covered, marketed, and consumed. And if you're an old-school powerhouse in this league, that's a little scary, because suddenly Indiana, the team that has been struggling for years, is on the verge of becoming the center of attention. And that means other teams are going to do whatever they can to slow that down. Now the Fever front office has a choice to make. They can sit back, accept the fact that they're being boxed out of free agency, and hope they can make a splash next year, or they can get aggressive, make a statement, and force their way into the conversation. Because at some point they have to stop waiting for big names to choose them. They have to start making moves, setting the tone, and changing the narrative themselves. The WNBA might not want Indiana to become a powerhouse overnight. Other teams might be trying to slow them down. But if the Fever want to take control of their own destiny, they have to push back hard, because the longer they wait, the more they risk letting the silent conspiracy turn them into an afterthought instead of the powerhouse they were meant to be. Now let's take a deeper dive into the long-term consequences. If Indiana doesn't push back against the forces trying to keep them down, the reality is a silent conspiracy isn't just about losing out on free agents. Now it's about the larger implications for the Fever's future if they don't assert themselves in the league. We're seeing other teams like Las Vegas, New York, and Phoenix consistently land the biggest names in free agency. But if Indiana can't break through this trend, they could risk not only missing out on their immediate opportunities, but potentially losing the chance to become a legitimate contender over the next few years. This would be a huge missed opportunity for the Fever, especially considering their growing fan base and their ability to generate media buzz around their star players. Indiana's situation is tricky. They had an exciting offseason so far, mostly because of the addition of Caitlin Clark. But the reality is they have to be able to surround her with more than just potential and hype. It's not enough to rely on rookies, no matter how talented they are, even though Clark and Aliyah Boston give the Fever a core to build around. The key to becoming a true contender is to have veteran leadership and experienced players who can produce right away, players who understand what it takes to win big games, players who can step up when it matters most. Without those pieces, even the most promising young core can falter. And that's what's happening to Indiana right now. The Fever should be in win now mode. They got two of the most exciting young players in the league, and the hype surrounding Clark could draw in all kinds of veterans who want to play alongside her, but for some reason they just can't seem to seal the deal with any top-tier free agent. So what gives one of the theories I've mentioned already is that teams are actively trying to stop Indiana from improving. It's not just a coincidence that players like Sutta Sabali, Brianna Jones, and Natasha Cloud all sign elsewhere after being linked to the Fever for so long now. It's important to remember that the WNBA is a business, and as much as we want to believe that it's all about the love of the game, there's a ton of behind-scenes strategy that goes into these decisions. Teams are constantly jockeying for position, making sure that no one team gets too powerful. If one team starts to dominate, it shifts the balance of power in the league. And that's something the established franchises don't want. It's understandable why veteran teams with established rosters would want to keep the Fever from becoming too powerful. After all, once Caitlin Clark fully finds her groove, Indiana could become the next big thing in the WNBA. They could challenge the dominance of teams like Las Vegas and New York, who have been on top for a while. And when you add the fact that they have Aliyah Boston, a player who could dominate for the next decade, it makes sense why other teams might not want them to become contenders too quickly. It's no surprise that we're seeing some media narratives around Indiana that try to downplay their potential. You probably heard the whispers that Indiana isn't quite ready to compete, that they're still in the rebuilding phase, and that they need more time before they can truly challenge the top teams. But let's be real for a second, that narrative is getting old. Indiana's roster is stacked with young talent, and Caitlin Clark's arrival changes the dynamic of the team completely. The Fever are a contender waiting to happen, but the more teams steer players away from them, the more it starts to feel like the league doesn't want Indiana to succeed. The question then becomes, how much longer can the Fever continue to play this waiting game? Let's break down how other teams are positioning themselves. While Indiana is stuck watching from the sidelines, teams like Las Vegas and New York are always in the mix of the biggest free agents every offseason. They're bringing in stars, solidifying their rosters, and pushing to stay atop the league. Las Vegas just added Kelsey Plum to the Los Angeles Sparks, strengthening their hold on the Western Conference, while New York continues to lure in big names year after year. Meanwhile, Indiana is left playing catch-up. They made one significant move, reining Kelsey Mitchell, but outside of that, it's radio silence. They've made their intentions clear by making sure they keep their young stars, but at the same time, the front office has done very little to improve the roster with immediate impact players. The problem here is that teams like New York and Las Vegas are not waiting around. They see the writing on the wall and are aggressively positioning themselves to be championship contenders. They know that the Fever are about to be one of the top teams in the league if they get the right pieces, so they're ensuring that they stay on top by scooping up talent. While Indiana is still trying to figure things out, there's another element at play here that we need to address: the financial situation in the WNBA right now. The league is under collective bargaining agreement, CBA, that's limiting the amount of money teams can spend, and the new CBA is coming up soon, which is expected to bring a major increase in the salary cap. This means that a lot of teams are hesitant to go all in on big contract before the CBA changes, but it also means that Indiana could be playing the long game. It's possible that the Fever are sitting tight waiting for the new CBA to be finalized so they can make a more aggressive move in the future. Maybe they're just holding off on locking up players for one-year deals and waiting for the salary cap to expand, giving them more room to maneuver. But the